Personally, I tend to jazz with the reveals, and depending on what colour they're thinking of, before I reveal what that colour is, I'll decide what route I'm going to take, because some colours are more suited to different types of reveals. So what I mean by that is certain colours you can limit them and almost force them into something. So let's take a good example. Like, imagine they're thinking of the colour yellow. If they're thinking of the colour yellow, if I was to say to them, without revealing the colour yellow, or without them telling me they were thinking of the colour yellow, after the experiment, we hit the timer, 18.2 seconds. Wow, that tells me that you're definitely a visual thinker. So let's see how we can run with that. So I'm going to ask you to maybe take that colour, and I want you to visualise a fruit. Just visualise a fruit that's that colour. So now you've limited them, right? So now they're either going to be thinking of, realistically, a banana or a lemon. So that's a cool way that you can narrow things down. Also, with the colour yellow, I might do something different, which would be a scene. I'd ask them to imagine a scene. So I want you to take your colour and imagine you're a child again, and you're using this colour to paint a picture. And this is the main colour in this scene is this. But I don't want you to just paint it. I want you to imagine yourself there. And then with the colour yellow, they're either going to be thinking of a beach or a desert. Maybe a rare outside case, maybe they're thinking of a field of yellow flowers, but I've never had it. It's always a beach or a desert that they're thinking of. And the cool thing with those two is that the link is sand. So I would start to say, I want you to imagine that you're there. I want you to imagine what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're feeling. If I was to see you there, if I was to see you there in bare feet, it sounds weird, but it's like a texture that I'm seeing here. Does that make sense? And you're going to get all of these parts of confirmation from them. You might not get anything. And then at the end, you can reveal, okay, I'm seeing like sand. This is like a desert or a beach. Yes, so you're going to get the hit there. You could have almost fished for it as well, because you could say, I can see an element of water here. If you get no reaction from them, you go, no, it's a lack of water, isn't it? That's what's particular about this place. So you'd be sort of fishing between beach and desert by mentioning water element there. But I wouldn't worry so much about getting those mini hits wrong. It's really nice to just go through and start to reveal these details, see what you get. And it's risk-free, because at the end, you can reveal the colour anyway. So you could just be really bold. Say they were thinking of the colour blue. If I was going to ask you to think of a scene where that's the main colour there, then most people are going to think of like an ocean or a sea. And that's what they're going to paint. It could be a sky. But it doesn't matter at this point. So we're just going to roll with what we think it is. So I think it's the scene. So I see, I'll say, so if you want to paint a scene, imagine like a kind of very basic picture that you might have painted as a child, using this colour as the main colour in there. Okay, I'm seeing movement, motion. Maybe that's motion, like it's like cold. Seeing motion, cold, and sort of travel. I'm seeing like a boat on the ocean, sailing across kind of like the horizon here. You're thinking of the colour blue, aren't you? Yes, so you're going to get confirmation from them. But the beauty here is, even if they were thinking of the sky, they were thinking of an aeroplane in the sky, for example, or they were thinking of a room in their house that's been painted blue. I don't know what else they were thinking of. All you're really asking them to confirm at the end is that their colour was blue. And you're naming these other things and these other things you're visualising, and then you say, your colour was blue, wasn't it? And you're going to get the nod and the reaction, which for them, they're just agreeing to the question you asked. But for everybody else witnessing, this feels like they're agreeing to all the other little elements and all the other little details that you said along the way. So that's confirmation principle. I've seen that in a lot of work by Peter Turner and Michael Murray as well. And that's a really interesting thing you can experiment with this colour test card. So things like, if you've got red, rather than it being a scene that you'd ask them to imagine, maybe red, I'd go with something like, oh, if you can you think of a time of year where this colour is is quite dominant. For example, like pink would be Valentine's Day. And then hopefully they're going to be on Christmas. At least in Western culture, that's kind of what red makes people think of Christmas time. The only other danger would be Valentine's, which is why I eliminate Valentine's by labeling that as pink. So that's something to do there. What other colours might be quite interesting? Grey. I mean, you could go with an animal for grey. Most likely you're going to get an elephant or rhino. Yeah, I mean, you can work them out. You can think of them as you go along. Orange is good. They can think of a fruit, right? It's going to be an orange. Could be a peach, maybe, I suppose. But I think orange is going to get you fruit. Green fruit would be an apple or maybe a grape. A kiwi fruit on the outside. But yeah, jazz with it. Think about what you want. White's good for imagining a scene, right? You're going to get a snowy scene with white, which is quite cool. You're nailed on with that. So you can start to reveal some elements. So I see like an element of play, but the temperature's cold. This is outside this memory, that sort of thing. And you can label these things as memories rather than them visualizing a scene. So that's some other ways of revealing colors and limiting them based on the fact that you know what the color is, and now you can limit them and box them into something. Taking that limitation principle a bit further, is an idea for maybe a drawing duplication. So if you were going to box them into something, so say it was yellow and you were saying to them, I want you to think of a scene. If you could imagine drawing that scene now you could pick up a pad or a billet and you could draw a kind of beach scene, that sort of thing. And now you're essentially doing a sort of drawing duplication. You could also give them a pad, have them draw something out. You might be able to pick up on whether they're sort of drawing a desert or maybe even like pyramids for yellow, or they're drawing like a beach scene with like a straight line and maybe some waves, that sort of thing. So that would be interesting premise for a drawing duplication based off the back of this, because the reason that you've gone into this drawing duplication, this was merely, in terms of your presentation, a way to test if this person was a visual thinker or not. If you want to go to some more efforts, you could run with somebody else first that takes a long time to find these, then go to a second person who's a lot quicker, or choose out of the two of them, whichever one was faster at finding their colour. You go with that person because you say, so I think you're more of a visual thinker. I'm going to try the further experiment with you. And that's a really nice way, justifies why you're using this and why this prop was getting you down to that individual person and that visual thinker that you can then work with. But a really cool thing that you can do if you're going to go through that limitation or that visualization or boxing them into a certain thing with the color is think about this in pre-show. So imagine that you're using this card in pre-show to test whether somebody's a visual thinker, so you can utilize them later on stage. So I'm just going around and just seeing who here are going to be the most visual thinkers. So we're just going to run through a quick experiment with you to save time later on stage and to save the embarrassment of having to send somebody back to their seat after getting them out onto the stage, etc. And you go through this with them. You know the color they're thinking of. And at this point, you don't reveal the color. You reveal nothing about it apart from the time. You go, brilliant. 11.47 seconds. That tells me that you really are a visual thinker. I think I'd love to work with you later on stage if that works out for you. But I'll tell you what, so whatever color that you were just thinking of, I just want you to accentuate that color in your mind and just keep thinking about that over and over. Just think of all the things in your mind of that color, and I just want that to be kind of like almost like a hue over everything you think about, everything you see between now and the show, and just keep thinking of that color. And don't change your mind. As much as you might be tempted to change to another color, just keep thinking about this one and focusing on it, making it more vivid, turning up the saturation. And now you could go through that in pre-show. So now when you call that person onto stage later on during your show, you can then go into that whole visualization thing, boxing them into something specific, because you're saying to them, okay, so I need you to have a color in mind. You've got a color in mind, haven't you? Yes. And now you know they're going to be thinking of that color that you've gone through with them before the show. So that's a really nice way that maybe you could use this in pre-show. A cool principle we could use here is one by my friend Peter Turner. So in performance it would look like this. You'd go through the process with the timer on the phone, with the stopwatch and the card, and at the end, okay, wow, you definitely are a visual thinker. I think we could try something a bit more special with you. Could you actually take that colour, and I want you to think about a memory involving this colour, where this was kind of a prominent feature in this memory. Take some time, think of one. So they think of one, and now you say, okay, so I want you to imagine not just this memory of this thing, I just want you to relive it. I want you to imagine that you're there again and you're experiencing all the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feelings, the emotions, everything that's linked to this memory. And now you say, good, go, I think I'm picking up on some of the aspects of this. This memory is quite private and personal, and now you lean in and you whisper to them. You lean out from having whispered to them for a bit and you go, is that correct, wasn't it? And they say, yes. Yeah, that's right. And now you say, look, I don't want to reveal your memory to everybody because that's something quite personal, but you wouldn't mind me telling everybody the colour that you're thinking of, would you? And they say, no, that's fine. And now you say, you're thinking of the colour green. And that's it, that's the hit. But you're utilising the whisper here. If I had somebody here in the studio with me today, I would run through that with them and show you what that would look like. But for now, you're going to have to use your imagination, I'm afraid. But in that scenario, I know that they're thinking of the colour green because I've gone through the card. I asked them to think of a memory of theirs and to make it strong. I talk about all the details of it. And now when I lean in and whisper to them, what I'm going to whisper to them is, right now, I'm seeing some of the details about your memory, but what's most prominent to me about this memory is the colour green. And that's probably enough for me to assure you that I could reveal some more of the details about your memory, but I'm not going to, because that's something personal that you should keep to yourself. And now you lean out and go, is that correct? And they say yes, because they're just confirming that their colour was green. And that's going to allow you to now reinforce to everybody else that you've just revealed that memory to them, because everybody else thinks that what you just whispered into their ear were the details of the memory. And you're going to reinforce that and really sell that idea by saying, I'm not going to reveal all the details about your memory to everybody here because that's something personal, but would you feel comfortable if I was to tell everybody the colour you were just thinking of? And they will say yes, and now you reveal the colour. So to everybody else, you've revealed all the inner thoughts, and now you've justified as to why you didn't say it out loud, and you're getting the confirmation because you're nailing the colour at the end. So that's Pete Turner's Bob principle. It's been featured in many of his works in the past. I believe it might have been the first place I saw it was in his Penguin live lecture, but it's popped up a lot of other places over the years, and he has some really, really clever work on it. So go and check out the Bob Principle by Pete Turner. Earlier we looked at boxing people into something based on the colour. But here's a premise utilising the one ahead principle where we can kind of do the opposite, which is you've gone through the colour test card with them, you're 22.4 seconds. That's incredible. That tells me that you are definitely a very visual thinker. Maybe we can try something else with you. So I want you to take your colour, whatever that colour might be, and imagine an object that's painted this colour. But don't feel like you have to go for an appropriate colour for it. For example, if you were thinking of the colour pink, maybe you might think of a squirrel. So a pink squirrel, for example. So it doesn't have to be something that's appropriate to that colour. And tell me when you've got something in mind. And they say they have. And then you're like, okay. Interesting. Just imagine that object for me. Yeah, you really are a visual thinker. Okay. Tell me, what was the object you were thinking of? And they tell you a football. And you're like, good. That was the easy bit. What's difficult for me is what colour would you have chosen for a football? So it could be something, don't give anything away now, but this could be something like obvious, like it could be white, like most footballs are white. Maybe you went for something different. I think I know what colour you've gone for here. Okay. For the first time, what were you thinking? What was the colour and the object? What was it? And they say it was a yellow football. And you say, okay, great, I got that. So this is just a basic one ahead here. And what I like about it is the fact that obviously you know that piece of information going in, but you're making out that the colour is the hard bit, because the object's something that's really easy to sort of visualise, and you could imagine some of these details. And I think that that's nice justification for not revealing them. So if anybody wasn't sure what happened there, at this point in this scenario, I know that they've chosen the colour yellow from here, but I don't reveal it. Nothing's been said out loud. Nothing's been confirmed. So I begin by saying, okay, I want you to pick an object and imagine an object painted in that colour. This doesn't have to be an appropriate colour for that object. It could be anything. So now they're thinking of a colour, and I pick up the card and I say to them, okay, just focus on that object for me. Just imagine it, nice and big. I come here and I write down yellow, because I know that's what the colour is going to be. So this first card has the colour written on it, yellow. I place this down. And now I'm like, okay, so, and I act quite confident that I've got this correct. And I say, so what was the object you were thinking of? Just the object, not the colour. And they say to you, a football. And you say, right, it was the football. But here's the hard part. So it's almost like you're instantly dismissing this as something we want to look at straight away. And now the hard part, which also means that you're taking credit for this being correct already by saying, and now for the hard part. And I pick up another card and I say, but what colour would you have gone for the football? And you sort of dismiss it, like making out like the football was the easy bit. But what colour would you have gone for? And this is where you go, and this is where you write down football on the second card. You place them both on top of each other. And there are many ways to work through this orientation. One option is that rather than putting them down on the table, you could put them into the spectator's pocket, like in a walk-around event. When I used to do a lot of corporate work, that's how I used to handle my one-aheads. There'd be somebody there in a suit usually, and I'd put this into one of their suit jacket pockets, and then the second one would go in as well. Now you get them to reveal the object and the colour, almost as if you're forgetting the fact that they've already named the object at this point. They say the object and the colour, and you ask them to remove the cards from their pocket. Because they've gone in the pocket, the order in which they went in is not going to be remembered. Nobody's going to know when you put it inside there, whether you put it in front, you put it behind. So that kind of takes care of the reordering of them for you. If they're on the table, another way is you just pick them up like this. And from there, you can't even tell which one I've picked up first, which one's second. I could come up here and I just separate them. It doesn't really matter, because you've either got a reveal like this, you've got reveals like this, like you can reveal them in any order. Like it doesn't really matter. Yellow football. As far as they're concerned, you didn't know either piece of information, and you're revealing them. So that's how to use this in a one ahead. And that's just an example, is them thinking of an object painted in that colour. But there's a more advanced one ahead system that I'd like to go into now. Whilst on the subject of one aheads, there's a system that I use for a three-phase one ahead, and it uses 3 billets, and I'll teach it now. It was something that went into the Royal Road to Mentalism, a project I did with Peter Turner. And we put this in there. It was one of, I can't remember which episode it was in. And it's something that I'd come up with a few years ago, several years ago, in fact, based on seeing Paul Wilson's version of the Colour Monty called Gypsy Monty. So Colour Monty is that old packet trick where you'd have the cards, and there were 3 cards, and there was supposed to be like 2 red ones and 1 green one, and you'd do this series of moves, and then like this move where you'd be showing the bottom card, and then at the end revealing, oh well, there's the red one, there's the green one, and then this one at the end has a gag reveal on it, like a joke. So that was the original Colour Monty, but it was when I saw Paul Wilson's version of that called the Gypsy Monty that he did with tarot cards. And what I really liked about it was he removed the fishy moves and the suspect moves that were in the original Colour Monty in that handling with just 3 tarot cards. And it was really nice story and really interesting premise. And I remember looking at that and then thinking, oh, I wonder what could be done with billets doing something similar to that. And it was from that stemmed this idea about utilising it for a one ahead, a really clean one ahead. I've ended up changing the handling and where the lifts are, the double lifts and etc. From Paul's original handling of it. And it was only when I was putting it into the Royal Road to Mentalism that Pete Turner said to me that he'd read something similar in a book. I can't remember what the name of the book was, but it was by Peter Warlock called The Patient Telepath. And in Pete Warlock's routine, it was a playing card kind of routine. And I think it involves some slates, playing cards, that sort of thing. So this is a really similar handling, but this is how I handle billets for one ahead. So you want 3 phases here. With all one aheads, we need to know one piece of information. In this case, it's not like other one aheads where you're going to need to force a piece of information because we've learnt it in a very justified manner using this test to see if somebody's a visual thinker or not. But we're going to start with our stack here, 3 billets. They're blank on both sides, and billets are, for those who don't know, just pieces of card or paper. And I'll begin by getting a break under the top 2. I tend to do this several times in this routine, and the way I get a break under 2 is I do a buckle. So it's not even that complex. I'm very bad with playing cards sleight of hand. But if I use my index finger here and I just slide back that bottom card, you should just be able to see a break appearing there, which means if I continue there and release the back of the card from my little finger here at the back, I get a pop and I get this big break here underneath the top 2 cards. So that's what I'm looking for, a break. And now I can re-grip, cover that front up here where there's that big brief, that big gap, and I'm set with my double lift here. So we're going to ask them to think of 3 pieces of information. We're going to say, I want you to take that colour that you're thinking of, and now I want you to think of a memory that you've got, a memory that you can, maybe a memory involving a specific place and another person in there. And they say, yeah, I've got one. And you say, okay, I want you to first of all think about the place. And now I'm going to openly, on this top card here, write place. I can show them that. Now I turn this double over because I've already got the double because I buckled the bottom card and the top 2 cards are held under a break, the top 2 cards here. I'm going to turn them face down. And now I'm going to write on the back the colour that they were thinking of from this. So let's imagine that the colour they were thinking of was, I don't know, orange. So I'm going to write orange on here, but without anybody seeing that I'm writing orange. But all they're supposed to be concentrating on at this point is the place. So I'm writing down orange, they're thinking of a place, and now I turn this double face down. I can show the back of this one again saying place, and now I take that double and move it to the bottom. So what it looks like to them is that I've written place on the top card, turned only the top card over. Apparently I've written down the place that I think they're concentrating on the back of that, turn that single card down and then move that card to the bottom. But actually that's all been done with a double. So we've now got a blank one on top and we say to them, okay, just to make sure I'm on the right lines here, where was the place that you were thinking of? And they might say Dubai. And you go, okay, interesting. I really want you to try and focus a bit more deeply on the person that's there. Just try and see this person. I almost want you, without saying anything out loud, I want you to imagine a sort of conversation we're having with this person. But if you can just focus on the person for me. And now I write the word person on this new top card here. And I openly show that the word person's there. I then come in, I do that buckle move again. Turn this double face down. and they're concentrating on the person. And now I bring it up to here, and apparently I'm going to be writing down the name of the person. But what I actually write here is Dubai, or whatever place that they said. Okay, so I've written Dubai on the back here. And now I can turn this again, repeating the moves, double face down, showing flashing person again, and now I move that double to the bottom, leaving us with a blank card on the face again, on the top. So you say finally, so who was this person that's in this memory with you? And they say, my father. And you say, okay, good. All right, I didn't get the name exactly. You'll see in a minute, like, who's your father? And they say Jim or whatever. You're like, oh, I didn't get the name exact, but you'll see what it is in a minute, like why that's worked out. And then you go, finally, the hard bit. It's the colour. So the colour you're thinking of, and I write down colour on this top card here. Write down colour. The colour you're thinking of. Just focus on it for me. I want you to just imagine it really brightly, as if you've in your eyes you've painted this whole room that colour. Again, I've got that break under the top two. Turn the double face down. And now I'm going to come up and I'm going to write something similar on the name. In this example, I would write Dad, because it's like, I didn't quite get it spot on is what I said. And it's like, I didn't get the name, because they say the father and you go, what was his name? And they say Jim or something. And you'd be like, I didn't get it exact, but you'll see why in a minute. And I write down Dad on this, just to myself here. And now again, in with a double. And here I turn the double face down and I stop there. At this point, I drop the pile onto the table, or I put them into their hand. But I've just, remember, I turned that double face down. I didn't shift them to the bottom. I've left them like this. So now I'm in the scenario of standard one ahead, except I'm in reverse. And this is the way I like to do one ahead routines myself, because the last piece of information tends to be the weaker one. So why not reveal it first? And that's what we're going to do in this situation. Don't save your really difficult climax for like the weak thing at the end. Like, think of a name of a person, think of a place, now choose a playing card from this deck. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You end up with something really weak on the end if that's your reveal order. So if you are going to do that, reveal the weak one first and build up to your stronger one. And this plays perfectly into the fact that they've been ordered in that order themselves already. They're going to be in reverse order if you just do that double and leave them at the end there. So first of all, I say the colour. So that was what you were thinking of overall, and that was, usually that's very difficult to pick up on, but I found that fairly easy with you. You were thinking of the colour orange, and they confirm they're thinking of the colour orange. And now you say person. Like I said, I wasn't sure about the person. You said your father, Jim. Now I went for Dad. So you take that as a hit. And then the really, really, really important bit was the place. So there's no way I could have guessed any place that you were thinking of or what this memory was. But can you tell me about this memory that you had with your dad, Jim, and why the colour orange was important? And they'll tell you some details about that memory. And finally, you're in the situation to turn over your final one and reveal the place, Dubai, and get your hit on the final one. So that's the sequence, one ahead sequence that I came up with in Thoughts for Your Pennies, which was something from a few years ago. And Pete helped me with some of the crediting and some of the history with Peter Warlock. But really my inspiration for it was from Paul Wilson. So that's how I do all my three-phase one aheads now. And it starts with just 3 cards, 3 blank billets, and you win clean. As promised earlier, here's the bonus for the iOS users, the iPhone owners. And that's the shortcut that I created for Chroma. It's actually 2 shortcuts, and they'll be shared with you the same place that the links to the videos are and where the videos are stored at murphys.com. And you'll need to install both of those shortcuts. There's 2 of them, and they both need to be installed, but it's only going to be the one that you're going to run called Chroma Solver. And Chroma Solver is going to allow you to know the color that they're thinking of from this card with virtually no work at all. And what's going to happen, you're going to run through the normal procedure where you're going to say to them, explain to them what a Stroop test is if they don't already know, have your spiel about the Stroop test, say to them, I want you to get a color in mind, tell me when you've got one in mind, but don't say it out loud. And then you say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to time you and see how quickly you can find your color written in different colored inks. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? But what will happen is I'm going to tell you the color ink to find your color written in. And as soon as you find it, you tell me now. But while you're doing that, I'm going to time you. At this point, you take out your phone. And apparently what you're doing is opening up the stopwatch on there. I'm going to hit screen record on here. And then we'll overlay that screen record over the top of the phone. Over the top of the screen, sorry. And you'll be able to see what's happening. So I've got this one shortcut here at the top called Chroma Solver. When I press that, it automatically opens up the timer. You can swipe the island at the top if you've got a new iPhone device to get rid of the island icon for shortcut. And now we're left here in the actual timer on the phone. And I'm going to use an example where I'm going to think of the color red. So I'm going to pretend like I'm the spectator as well, and spectators thinking of the color red, but obviously we don't know that now. So at this point you say, I'm going to start the timer. You can show your phone here, and you say, I'm going to start the timer and give you the card. Find your color written in black ink. Go. And now you hand it to them. They look, and whenever they find it on the front of the card, you're going to press the volume up button once. When they find it on the back of the card, you're going to press the volume down button. So front of the card up, volume up. If they find it on the back of the card, volume down. So it's as simple as that. So in this scenario, I'm looking at the front of the card here. You've asked me to find it in black ink, and I say yes. And you say, now find it in blue ink, but you press up because I found it on the front of the card. Now look in blue ink and they say yes. So again, that's on the front of the card, so another click. Now find it in green ink. Turn it over, they find it, they say yes. So one more down there. And now you say, and finally find it in red ink. And they say yes on the front. So we stop the timer, and now we input our very last volume control, which is volume up because they found it on the front. And a second later, we get a fake notification that comes up. It says, great, I'll see you at the Red Lounge Cafe. As if you just got a notification that came through from another app or from a message app or from a text message. But no one gets to see that at the time because you're just saying, wow, 56.67 seconds or whatever the time is. And that notification is going to come through and tell you what color they're thinking of, because it said in there, whatever color lounge, the Red Lounge Cafe, I think it said there. And that means that they were thinking of the color red. So that's how that works. Installing shortcuts is pretty simple. There'll be a link there. You'll click on that iCloud link on your phone, from your phone, and inside your phone it will pop up saying shortcut, do you want to install it? And you're going to say yes, install the shortcut. Remember, you've got to install both of them. And then the first time you run the Chroma Solver app, it's going to pop up with a permission asking you if you want to allow it to open another shortcut from within the shortcut, and you're going to have to say yes. And that should be all you'll need to do. Every time you run it subsequently, you won't get that message. That won't pop up again in the future. So that's how to install the shortcut. If you're struggling with the shortcut or installing the shortcut, then just do a Google search on installing shortcuts from URL or something like that, and there'll be information on the internet about how to install shortcuts. But if you're an Android user, then I'm really sorry. I don't have an Android shortcut or built. There is a system on Android called Tasker, and that's an app you can download. And then in Tasker, you can build things that are very similar to shortcuts, but I haven't built one. You'll have to build that yourself, I'm afraid. But I don't tend to use this. I made this just so I could get you guys up and running really quickly with it, with this, without having to do any memorization of the order. I personally just memorized those first 13 colors and the sequence and the order that they're in. But you could have them anywhere. You could have it written on the back of your phone, for example. And imagine if you just copied that crib onto a piece of paper that you stuck on the back or put inside a transparent case on the back of your phone. So you stop the timer 56.67 seconds, and now you turn the phone, you go, that's quite impressive. And at this point, you're just looking at your crib on the back to see which color is at the number 8, for example, number 12, whatever you need to look at. And you just got all the crib on the back of the phone. So that's another way to do it. But there's a shortcut there for you guys that like shortcuts. You might be able to modify the shortcut and customize it so it could perhaps send that data somewhere else or do something else with it. There's some more options, and I took a much deeper dive into shortcuts on my project Devious, which is also available through Murphy's and distributed by Murphy's to other magic retailers. So yeah, check that out if you want to know some more information about shortcuts. But that's a very basic shortcut that I've created there for Chroma called the Chroma Solver. Well, that's it. That's Chroma. It's fairly straightforward. It's just one card that you can keep in your wallet. But I urge you to go out, try it. If you can't memorize any of that, remember everything's built into here, all the cribs on there. If you don't want to memorize anything else or use an app, you've got the option of a crib sheet if you want to. But nothing more to say other than thank you to Murphy's, the guys at Murphy's. Thank you to Javier for his work on the trailer. And the credits at the beginning to Paul Daniels. They were there. That's the first place I learned about the binary principle. Many others have used binary principle in other projects since, including Craig Petty, Michael Weber, and Tim Trono, to mention a few. So check out other people's work, but thank you so much for supporting my work, my magic, and my mentalism, and you can find out more at addsomelemon.com.